Well, hello.
Hey, Davey.
How you doing, buddy?
How do you like that one? How do you like Davey?
I don't give a fuck anymore. I used to care about it. I don't care anymore.
All right. Well, that's
call me whatever.
Big D.
Big D. Big D and the boys.
Yeah, that's you now.
Yeah, dude. I'm doing well, dude. It's at this point a week into New Year's, and I'm sure I'm still gonna be locked down in my house. I'm gonna hopefully my daughter's sleeping a little bit better and my dog isn't going crazy. That would be weather in Ohio sucks right now, so
yeah, it's pretty yucky outside. We had a nice Christmas Eve snow though. That was hype.
It was super nice, but now it's like my dog wants to go outside, but he doesn't want to be outside. So he's got to come back in right away. And we do that all day, wiping his paws.
He's covered in mud. Same story over here, man.
That's crazy.
Except my dog's been pranking us where he'll knock on the door, like he'll bark to come in and like scratch it.
Yeah.
And then he'll open the door and he'll be standing there with like a thing he thinks he shouldn't have in his mouth, like the hose.
Yeah.
Or like a gardening tool, and he'll run away with it, like chase. And he'll do that over and over.
At least it's funny,
Maybe at first it was.
Yeah. But now it's like, God damn it, this dog.
Yeah, fucking puppies are a lot, dude. Anyways, first of all, this is the Tome of Chaos podcast. Thank you for tuning in. We are crowdsourcing a religion that doesn't suck. And part of that is looking at religions that did suck or religion adjacent things, I think, in this case.
Yeah.
And this week we have on a very special guest, my most specialist guest, my sweet honey baby wife, Teake.
Hello.
Hey, Teake. It's good to have you back on.
It's good to be here.
Yeah, I'm pumped about it. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine other than the pranks, the dog pranks. I do this thing. Well, I don't do this. I did this today where I just left the door kind of open upstairs so that when he did want to come in, he could just push it open. And then I go shut it because every 5 seconds that you're going to open the door for him. And then he's like, haha, I have this thing. Come get me. It's just not what I want to spend my time doing.
You're just like, drop it. He's like, nuh-uh, you're going to have to come get me out in this rain.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awful. Hell yeah. Like Walter said, we're crowdsourcing a religion that doesn't suck. I mean, it's no secret. We've talked about politics on here because it goes hand in hand. And I think that, honestly, as we talk about this subject, I think that I'm going to be able to circle it to religion as well. In a way, or politics in a way. So this isn't a church we're talking about, but a school.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is that what it is? Is a school?
So it was known as something else beforehand. But they called it like a reform type of situation, but they renamed it when they, like anything, when you're trying to revamp and change things and whatever, they changed the name to school at some point in like the late 70s or 80s. So it's the Elan School. It was open from 1970 to 2011,
which is nuts.
Yeah, it's really nuts because something that I found today was that in 1983 PBS did a documentary called The Children of Darkness, and they did a section. It was all on different places that helped either mentally, I think it was mentally challenged or mental health issues in like young kids or up to being 18. And there was a segment on the Elan School, and I was like, this is literally happening right now. Like and it's all in the documentary that we watched called The Last Stop. It's all the same footage. But to think that it made it past 1983 so much further, pretty crazy.
That was nuts. I mean, they had, as you watched it, like you were saying, as you watched it and you would see these people doing what they did, it was like it was a news broadcast.
Right.
Yeah.
And
there
they
was
were
like
totally fine with it.
Right.
Like it was just a different, like a weird fucked up time, like the 70s and 80s. Like, but then to make it to 2011, it like blew my mind.
Yeah.
So
Same.
yeah, we're talking about the Elan school. What, like, I don't know. We all watched The Last Stop, right? It's on Amazon Prime. You should pirate it. And not get it from Amazon Prime. Just download get your pirate hat out and download that shit. And I like it was I don't like the opening.
I think let's describe what it is first, right?
Okay.
Like what the school is.
Yeah.
I think that's a good place to start.
Yeah, I think that so it opens, you know what I mean? The documentary opens and it's like it has a few small quotes, but it opens with like 12-step program stuff and everything like that. So what happens is this dude goes through a 12-step program for alcohol. He gets out of it and he decides, I want to do a similar thing, but I want it to be based in like, not, I don't know, being willing to hurt each other's feelings, right? And do fucked up shit to each other and yell at each other.
So it's attack therapy.
Okay.
Is what it's called.
Cool.
Yeah, they referred to Sananon. Do you guys remember the game? That's where they got the idea for attack therapy from.
Yeah.
Which is just, I don't know. It was very traumatic to even watch it all.
It was super fucked. So this dude starts, which like first things first, the dude starts Elan 1.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, he immediately knew he was going to open up other ones. You don't name something with a number if you don't think you're going to open up more.
Oh, I didn't know that it was
It was called Elan 1. So he opens up Elan 1 and it's described as the last stop. It's that you're under the age of 18 and you are such a bad case that either you're going to prison or you're going to go to the Elan school.
Yeah, a lot of the time it's like
court ordered or like that. You're basically given these options. If you've gone, you can go to jail or go here, depending on the situation. And that was in the early days.
Yeah.
Right.
So things change as it goes.
Yeah.
But the early days were like these kids that in a lot of cases were criminals and were endangering themselves and other people. Like Doug, for instance, he's one. But again, a lot of this comes back to these people's backgrounds too, right?
Yeah.
Which is a whole other thing. And I'm sure we'll get into that.
Yeah.
But the focus was like changing behavior. The focus was all about like we change, like you change and then you get to leave. Change your behavior, right? And they were like, no one runs away, no one gets away. Because a lot of these kids have tried different places and either gotten out because they've run away or gotten kicked out of them. So that was like a big, I don't know, appeal to the school.
Yeah, I think parents were like, okay, finally my kid can't just like get out of this one.
Yeah.
Because a lot of, like, you're a fucking rebellious kid. They put you in a psych ward or something and you realize like if I set my fucking bed on fire in the psych ward, they kick me out. Like they can't deal with me. If I'm in juvie, if I'm bad enough, they'll send me somewhere else. Like, so I think a lot of these parents were like, we don't know where else to go with this. These people say that they're going to take my kid and return them to me like a fixed child.
Right.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, I don't have to do anything. I get to sit on my ass and not have a kid until they come back.
Yeah. It's a boarding school, right? Which is
Yeah.
It's like in that same vein, which is weird because like you would think that it was a lot of, very wealthy parents sending their kids off to this thing, but most of the time it was like lower middle class people.
Later on, I think it was
yeah
more wealthy people because they marketed it differently.
Yeah.
But yeah,
because it was $58,000.
Yeah, towards the end.
Was
yeah.
it? Okay, because they asked one family and they were like, "This is how much you're paying," and that's like more than most big colleges at that time.
Right. In Children of Darkness, they did say 20,000. So that was like 1980 something. 1980.
God.
20,000 a year.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So you would pay them, and they would take your kid, and they never came home.
Right.
They would abduct your kid, right? Like,
so that was one of them. Is one of the dudes who you find out is the documentary filmmaker. Was one of the kids who was like abducted. Like his parents paid it. They sent 4 goons, and like picked the dude up.
Mm-hmm.
And you can
staff and like fellow students would come in the middle of the night and snatch you up and take you to school.
Yeah, it was crazy. And the dude who, what's his name? Ricci?
Yeah, Joe Ricci.
Yeah, Joseph Ricci.
Yeah, Joseph Ricci. So Joe Ricci starts this school, Elan, and he's like in the documentary, he's constantly just like, there's this interview that they keep showing clips of, and he's explaining that these 4 dudes will come into your house, snatch you up, bring you to the school. You won't escape. You can try and burn the place down. We'll rebuild another one, and we'll put you back in it. So you couldn't escape.
That actually happened.
Yeah.
It's so insane. It's also not a school at all. Like a lot of the people that came out didn't know how to read or write. So that's also a really sad thing.
Yeah, that was like, that's why I struggled to want to call it a school even.
Right. Because
it's like, they didn't teach him anything. So, and then I think going, from there, like you start hearing the stories of people, who are rolling into the Elan house, and like first day shit where people were like, where the fuck am I?
Right.
I thought this was going to be a vacation. There's like pamphlets and shit, right?
Right. For me, what I found the most interesting about people's experience on their first day, from what I saw and read, was they just were thrown in, they were not given any rules until they were just like breaking them, right?
Yeah.
So like the whole idea of there being different like levels of jobs and different responsibilities, like they had the non-strengths and the strengths. That was really wild. I remember hearing somebody's story saying like they spoke to somebody in the room when they first walked in, and then they got in trouble because they didn't know that person was a non-strength and they were a non-strength, and they had to have a strength there so that they could have a conversation. And I'm like, what is a non-strength? And I feel like they were probably thinking the same thing, but also terrified.
I don't know if either of you can explain the hierarchical system.
I can get close, I think.
It's like when I was watching it, and I was like fully intent, and I was like, I don't fucking understand. Like there's 30 things on this list.
There's a ton. And there are like, one, it's a hierarchy just for like the sake of a hierarchy.
Yeah.
And the names are bizarre. Like one of the names is like Shingle. Like that's a job title.
Ramrod.
Yeah, Ramrod.
Yeah. I think that talk about that a little, because when you talk about that first day and her breaking these rules, you immediately like, they're like, all right, this is the system. And like, keep in mind that nobody on this system, they are all previous students.
Yes.
There are no like there's no adult supervision, right?
There is, but it's so out of touch and not qualified.
Yeah.
Like there's no regulations on this school whatsoever. No. But yeah, most of them, it's a cycle of students and former students that are playing these roles.
Yeah. So like I turned 18. I did a good job in this system. And now I'm 19 and I am your boss.
Yeah. I mean, especially they don't educate you either, right? So there's like an incentive to take the job that they offer you to stay on and be staff at the school. Cause like you just spent your teen years learning skills that are useless in the real world. You've learned how to like domineer and abuse other people, not like how to read or do math.
Well, and one dude says towards the end that like Ricci was taking care of these dudes. Like the people
like car and
bought him a car, you know what I mean? So it seemed like not only did you get out and you're like, well, fuck that, I'm not working for this, I'll go get a job at McDonald's or you know what I mean, whatever. It was like Ricci was like, yo, here's a bunch of money because I am super rich. Like the dude owned a fucking horse track. Like the dude's, you know, he was made.
Yeah. Well, you make this was a huge industry, much like the private prison industry is now. And I'm sure this still is, but they kept referring to it as the troubled teen industry, right?
Yeah.
Like your kid sucks. We'll take him in. And you don't have to worry about him. Just give us your money.
Yeah. So what are these, can we explain the hierarchy a little bit?
Yeah. A little bit.
Yeah, we can do our best.
So the non-strengths are called worker and ramrod.
Right. And a worker, you just do like general cleaning, right?
Yeah.
Like, and then the ramrod is a snitch, right? Like they just kind of go around.
They're the managers of the workers.
Right. They snitch on workers for not working hard enough or talking to each other and shit, right?
The expediter is above that. They're like the big brother. They're the policeman. They enforce the rules. They're a strength. So I think that they are the ones that literally have the clipboards.
Yeah.
And walk around with everybody's names on them. And I think it was either 5 or 10 minutes. They did checks. Head counts every 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And what happens is, you know, if they did head counts where they were physically, counting people. And then they also did like a roll call. So it was like, you know, nobody could cover for the other if somebody was trying to get away.
Yeah.
There was always a way to find if somebody's missing. And if somebody was missing, then you're accountable for them. Yeah. There's always a way to pin somebody and make somebody responsible for somebody else's actions.
Yeah.
It's really messed up. And I don't know. I'm sure going into this more, if we do talk about Joe, I read some stuff that he wrote and he's just like a complete paranoia. Like he's totally paranoid. And this feeds that completely, you know, keeping track of everybody's actions and everything that they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm all about talking. I know, you know, I remember Joe and I'm about talking about that. Which at all these times, those are just children that are above you. And basically it's children who did better than you. Right?
Yeah. They were like yes men, you know, they were like, I'll just do what I got to do to get through this.
Yeah. I'm not going to break the rules. I'm going to fucking I'm going to snitch on everybody.
But they also say like, it's more about just being there long enough because like they would even dock you for being a goody two shoes. Yeah. Like anything you did could be an offense depending.
Well, no, those were called guilts.
Yeah. Guilt. So real quick. So you get up and you do those, and then there's one above that, right?
Yeah. There's, let me look. Department heads, shingles, coordinators. And then they talk about, being shot down, reentry, all that stuff.
So like, it just keeps working up until you're like the person running like the general meetings. They call them the GMs and shit like that. But so it keeps running up and then you could get bussed down.
Yeah.
Like shot down.
Shot down.
If you do shit that's fucked up, you get shot down. What are some things that would get a person shot down?
Talking too quietly.
Yeah.
Talking too loudly.
Yeah.
Not participating in a GM. Not participating in a GM would get you a GM. So, I can't think.
Holding hands. One girl, I think, held hands with a guy.
Well, there was no flirting. They explained that. No sex, no flirting, no drinking, no drugs. It was like extreme straight edge.
Oh yeah,
they didn't take aspirin, probably. So and so you couldn't do any of that. You couldn't hold hands, right? Yep. If you weren't open, like if you didn't admit when you fucked up, and those are the guilts, right?
Yeah, the guilt was just like they kind of held this thing over your head of like, we know you have guilt, and they would list out what guilts were, like what would make you guilty, but they didn't like ascribe a specific one to you. From what I understood, they just kind of were like, you have guilt, and it would like force you into confessing to things that you had done. Like the girl who had held hands with the guy, it was in the dark, nobody saw them, and she ended up just being like, they know I'm guilty, right?
Yeah.
I have a list of guilts I pulled up.
Yeah, let's see.
Here, I'll read some examples. Okay. It says breaking the laws was called guilt, and examples were, let's see. Reading as a non-strength, writing without permission, looking at the security zones, talking too loudly, looking at the opposite gender, any form of physical contact, unauthorized drawing, pretending to sleep at night, being in the bathroom too long, being quote-unquote manipulative, listening to unauthorized music, showering for more than 3 minutes, making facial reactions to orders, pretending not to have acquired guilt, negative body language, and a lot of other stuff.
Jesus. So it's worse than prison.
Yeah. Well, and so I think that's what's like, we're used to the concept of people having their freedoms taken away. Yeah. Like a lot of this stuff is just like people being restricted of their freedoms. These are kids that are deemed bad. They would probably be in something like juvie if they weren't in this house. So either way, they're losing privileges or, whatever. But the really fucked up shit about this system in particular is the strictness of it, and the fact that you're having the inmates police themselves with almost no oversight. And the treatment, because this doesn't have the straight punitive punishment system that, like, when we send people to prison, there's like this promise of reform, but it's really about punishing them, right? Like, it's really about, this is what you get. Whereas with this concept, it's your kid is going down the wrong path. Let's get them set straight. And their solution to that is to abuse them, essentially. So we didn't get into the GMs yet, but I think that's like the next horrific thing that comes as a consequence of all these guilts, right?
Yeah. So you would get a GM, and you would walk in and they would just scream at you.
Yeah. Right. So GM was a general meeting, right?
Yes. Yeah. And so one of the first things that would happen during a GM is that they would bring a broomstick if they told you to get up, you're getting a GM. They would put a broomstick at your feet, and they would tell everyone else, like generally 30 to 60 people, does anybody have any feelings to get out?
Yeah.
Get off.
Well, get off. The top berates them for a while.
Right.
And then they open it to the floor.
Yes. And then they all rush this person. Like, it seemed like everybody was like almost traumatized by the amount of like chairs that would be falling over. Everybody commented about that. Like these people were ready to like bite, you know?
Yeah.
So the thing that I found out that I don't think was in the documentary was that the importance of the broomstick is the amount of people that fit that width was the amount of people that could yell at you at one time. Shit. And everyone had to do it for 2 to 5 minutes. So these things were lasting at least 45 minutes. And they were having multiple a day sometimes.
Jesus.
So, and everybody did eventually get actually upset if they had to have them because their days were filled with their jobs of like cleaning or keeping track of everybody else. So their meals were like 5-minute meals. And so if they had GMs on top of that, their downtime was getting cut to like 2 minutes. It was a mess.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
They even had to learn. So, and then of course, what happens during the GM is that they're just screaming at you, right?
Yeah.
Screaming really, really mean shit.
Yeah.
And to a point where everybody there, okay, so I'm reading this comic right now by somebody who went there. If you just type in Elan School comic, it'll come up. He's on Reddit. He's got it on Reddit. It's really interesting. But he was talking about how when you're there, you learn how to scream in these like this rhythmic pattern because you're trying to do these like deep breaths because you're screaming at the top of your lungs. And, you know, if you watch it, you'll hear them. They're like, you know, screaming. Yeah. It's so intense.
It's guttural. It's like weird. It's like the rhythma, like, or the rhythmic patterns that you were talking about really fucked me up.
Yeah.
Like listening. It is well thought out attack.
Right.
On someone that you might not even fucking know.
Right.
And they're just like guessing at shit that would just brutalize you. Right.
Right.
I mean, they, you know, some of these like, I know at least like a handful of the women that were on it had all been like raped. You know, and some, like one of them was like a child, like it was her father. Mm-hmm. And they're screaming shit like that at your face.
Yeah.
And like that, it broke my fucking heart. Like there's no way that they were getting results out of this.
No. No, it seems like it's been just extremely detrimental to the majority of people that went through it.
I can give you a statistic.
Yeah, please.
So in the PBS documentary, Children of Darkness, it stated that I don't know what year exactly this was, but there was all the parents of these Rhode Island students. It was 117 total. 70 of them ended up either on the streets or in jail. One of them a murderer. Yeah. So they were claiming that these people were coming out and rehabilitated and whatever, but 70 out of 117 were not and were worse off.
And the thing about it too is like a lot of these kids, like, you know, you like to think that they're all like, you know, bad kids or whatever, but it's like, honestly, they were just teens, right? Like a lot of them, like I did some shit that definitely was illegal when I was a teen. I didn't get caught for a lot of it.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I was thinking too, is watching that stuff is like, it was like, oh, I would run away. Mm-hmm. Oh, I smoked weed.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what I mean? Like, and some of them it was harder. Some of them got into like heroin and shit like that. But it's like, I mean, the older I get, the more I'm like, I might be one of my only friends that never did a bunch of blow. You know what I mean? Right. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not the normal one. So, and some of these were in the 70s when there was all kinds of other panic. Like, it was like, if your kid ran away, you don't hit them hard enough.
Right.
You know what I mean? And like, now you have to do something. And you can just say that you sent them to a school and they're being good and they're going to come out way better.
Well, and then, so you have all these kids going in that, like, I would venture to say probably a decent amount of them have probably just exhibited normal teenager misbehavior, right? Like nothing super out of the ordinary. If out of 117, 70 of them are like fucked after that, it seems like you're doing more harm than good.
For sure. Like 100%. And it's, I mean, and the other ones are people that shouldn't have even, they needed psychiatrists and they needed counselors and they needed like the other ones that sent that weren't like going completely crazy or, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, holding people up at gunpoint and shit like that before they get sent. Like, are people who were abused as kids, abused by their parents. One of the stories was a dude like got tied to a radiator by his mom and beaten. And he was awarded to the state afterwards, you know? Like, and then the state was like, let's throw him in the Elan house and help him out. Like, so it's like this trauma that you just put traumatized people in very traumatizing situations.
Right. And so on that note, that was Doug, who I brought up earlier. He was 12 when that happened, and he got out when he was 18. The reason why he was there so long, the majority of people were there for 3 years-ish. He was there that long because he was a minor and the things that you're saying. But his history was his mom would abuse him. His dad was shot and I don't know shot, but murdered by cops. Of
course.
He ended up in reform after reform after reform of group homes, different things like that. And he was being abused and raped by other students in this reform school that he was at. And he told people who were in charge and they didn't do anything. And at this point, he's saying, I was a violent and angry kid. What else did I know? And he burnt this place. So that's how he ended up at the Elan school.
Yeah, he burnt his first or that home down to the fucking ground.
Yeah.
Like, which is like honestly super admirable. Like hearing his story, it's like, I'm getting the fuck out of here by any means necessary.
Right.
You know? And then they ship him off. One of the women who she's like she does like all the artwork and stuff like that, makes puppets.
Yeah, Mary.
I thought she was like one of the saddest cases. Like you can tell like she was a fucking child.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like and she would she was already like, she was born like almost blind. She had issues and she just got shipped up there.
I mean, all of her artwork is just people like she's singing and people are complaining about her singing, or she's, just doing like childlike things people are mad at her.
They would put them in the corner for days, weeks, and maybe months.
Yeah, that's what it sounded like.
Like, all right, go to sleep, wake up, get back in the corner. And Mary was like, I created an imaginary friend that I would send away when they would come up to me, because when you were in the corner, every person had it could just come up and yell curse words at you, which is not normal. Like normally you can't curse unless you're attacking someone during one of these therapy sessions. Yeah. And it fucking dude, like her story broke my heart too. Like it's brutal.
It's really hard. It's really hard to see all of these kids humiliate each other and be humiliated too. Yeah. Just in every facet of like they had the costumes that they made them wear.
Yeah, if you tried to escape, or what was one of them? The dog one.
Yeah, like there was a guy that was like, we should get a house dog. That other house has a dog, and they made him the house dog because he came up with an idea.
Yeah, because that's the thing about this is like, you think it's bad. You're like, all right, this is fucked up. You're having all these people yell. And then it's like, here's the next layer. We would make women who were sexually traumatized wear signs that they were whores.
Right.
Like wear this sign, ask me why I'm a whore. And we're going to dress you up like a sex worker, like a typical what people thought sex workers were in the 90s. Stand you here, and you're going to wear this costume for fucking however long we say, and people can just berate you.
Yep.
Wear a dog costume, wear a dunce hat.
The dunce hat, yeah, that was one. If they were deemed stupid, there was also, the diaper, the rattle, the bonnet. If you were being childish, they also, and I don't think this is in the last stop, they do this thing called saucing. They would sauce people, which meant they would take the garbage cans, and dump them on the kids.
They called it electric sauce.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, in last stop, they called it electric sauce, and they would grab shit out of the toilet and cigarette butts and whatever they could find, make a sauce, and then put it over your entire body so that people could ridicule you.
And then there also was in the PBS show, there was 3 guys who refused to live in the house, so they were living in the dumpster outside for over 2 weeks. Just weird stuff like that. So messed up. And
then I think talking about all the messed up shit, and maybe there's more. I don't know. I can't. It was just completely messed up.
It's a circle, right? We
got
the
ring. We got to touch on that.
Oh my God. So let's hit the ring. So the ring is, why would you get the ring?
I think if you were just super stubborn and rebellious, right?
Oh no, it was for bullying. If you were a bully.
Okay.
Right, is one of the specifics they say. Is if you were a bully, if you were being an asshole to anyone who's here, who are students that went through the same program as you and now are your leaders, if you're a bully at all, we're going to put you in the ring.
Yes.
And in the ring, what happened?
Well, it was a boxing ring. They'd hand you a pair of gloves and then someone else a pair of gloves, and you would fight. And even if you won, they would just send a new person in. So essentially there was no winning.
Fresh. Because, just whoever they could. They start with their biggest person.
Yep.
And then
the next biggest and the next biggest until you're tired and worn out from fighting however many guys you fought, and you get beat down and you lose.
Yeah. And I mean, dude, Mary got put in the ring.
Right. Yeah.
As a very young blind girl who has been in homes her whole life.
Yeah. Neurodivergent too, on the spectrum and all that.
Yeah, she's on the spectrum. I mean, and she gets put in the ring, and she said, I would just put my arms up over my head and just lay down, because if you fought back, you were just going to get worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
And her pictures that she drew of it and shit were just people and their faces bloodied, and they would just beat the fuck out of you.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you want to run, they sent students to chase you.
Yeah. And then they'd take your shoelaces out of your shoes, which made them pretty much not usable. They'd put you in bright yellow clothes and really, really short, bright shorts.
Yeah. And they would, they'd put handcuffs on your feet.
Yeah.
And you had to wear fucking handcuffs on your feet. Or on your ankles. It's insane. And the whole time I'm watching this, I just keep thinking about, do you remember this? Have you ever heard about the Stanford prison experiment?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's what this is. This is a grand scale that.
In a lot of ways, yeah, for sure.
We're going to take troubled people, put them in a house, get them reformed, quote unquote, and then put them over the other kids that we bring to this.
Right.
And
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, to me, it's like this weird form of trauma bonding, where it's like you're the victim of this attack and then you become the attacker. Like there's just this like cycle of abuse and victimizing of each other. And it's just so insane and terrifying.
Yeah.
I don't know. They weaponized these kids. Like they turned them into human weapons. They made them violent and they made them like know how to tear a person down.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and they would just fucking abuse you until you admitted shit, which is like another thing in the documentary is like Kennedy's cousin, the one who went to prison for murdering a girl, was in the Elan house.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he confessed in the circle or in the ring, right?
Yeah, or it was like one of their therapy things that they would do.
I think it was the ring specifically, where
really?
they were all beating him and saying like, "We're not going to stop until you admit you did it."
Yeah. So the dude, which is why, like, as I'm watching this documentary, it to me, I'm like, this is the system.
Yeah.
In a huge way. This is prison. You know, like this is you're taking people, putting them in charge of other people and being like, all right, like you're their boss. Make sure you get results. And then people look back and they're like, I remember when I was just a fucking worker. Nobody gave me a chance. I'm going to make this person's life miserable. This is prison. I mean, talking about the enforcers that would go around, and it's like you had like Owl, and the owls would watch, and it's like one dude was like, nobody ran away on my shift, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, damn, like, because at a certain point I'm sitting here and I'm like, man, some of these people sound like they enjoyed it there.
Yeah.
You know? And it just kept bringing up to me, it's like, this is what happens when you like try to take therapy out of therapy.
Right.
This is what happens when you try and like solve problems. It made me think like at times, and I have to like be completely honest, it made me think of church.
Mm.
You have guilt. We know it's there. Admit that you have guilt. Oh, you admitted this shit. Now you can't be a leader in the church. You know what I mean? Everybody knows now that you're not a leader, you know, like just like these things that like hit my head about just church and stuff too, of like being shot down, being bust back, having to admit everything that's ever happened to you, you know?
Yeah.
And they didn't beat you.
No.
But I think that they fucking, you know, they weren't trained to handle the problems that I've had or other people have had.
Right.
But they tried to.
Yes.
And, you know, and then just cops in general. Like, it's like, how can you expect people to police others?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's like the big thing about this, because I was like, you know, watching it really fucking bummed me out. But I think it's just another data point of like, we at some point in this country came up with this narrative of like, you have to be tough. And the best way to be tough is to be brutalized, like to have things inflicted upon you. Like look at the military, right? Like you go in, you're treated like dog shit. You're stripped of everything that makes you an individual. You're worked to your fucking bone until you're willing to submit. But like, what do we see from that, right? PTSD all fucking over the place.
Well, and like, everybody in this documentary had like that, like wake up in cold sweats.
Yeah. Well, we created these like PTSD factories as our concept. This is what we thought was fixing people, was actually giving them PTSD. Yeah. And I feel like a lot of people at this point know that like this kind of attack therapy or like not exposure therapy, because that's a different thing, but like just like beating people into the ground to make them tough doesn't actually help them. But there's still that mentality definitely still exists within our culture. And that's why I feel like this is worth talking about, is like, there was the therapists in this documentary talking about how this kind of environment actually nurtures a sociopath. Like if you are already a sociopath, which is the people we're trying really hard to avoid becoming, more violent or more cruel, because we can't appeal to empathy, right? Like they don't have that. When you teach them how you get results is violence and attacking people, they thrive in that and they internalize that and they get better at it.
Yeah.
So the very thing that we're trying to remove from people, we're actually instilling in them by doing this kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, what do you guys think about, because at a certain point in the documentary, I texted Walter and I was like, man, this took a turn, because, you find out that the director was in it, they have one of the old counselors there who I came away from the documentary being like, I don't like this person. She said, she was like, I'm sorry people feel that they got abused, but I'm still going to sleep at night. And then you had these people who were like, I don't know, maybe it did save me. It was the best and the worst time of my life, did it save them? Like,
I think in some capacity you can say yes. I mean, they said yes. I think for me, the biggest thing that I was affected by was when we're talking about the beginning and they're all saying like how they were as teens, like I was bad, I did this thing. And then it cuts to later when they talk about their family history of being sexually abused or not having parents around or being physically abused, mentally abused. To me, it's all that cycle. Like I immediately latched on to that because I've learned a lot about that within my own family over the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And just how, even if you're trying to deal with that stuff, you're still a subject of it. You're still a part of it. So I'm still hindered by the brokenness of my family, even though I'm, further along, Yeah. And I kind of feel like it's like this scale, right? And I think some of them, like Doug, he said he just doesn't even think about it. He doesn't look back at it. He doesn't know what he was supposed to take from it.
Yeah. Well, one of the things,
think about it.
Yeah. One of the things he says, I was so struck by him. He was like, I was getting beat at home. Right. When I was a child, I was being beat. I was being abused. So it's like, you can beat me, abuse me, and try and berate me. It's not going to work. But then I got out and I had to go to college. And you did nothing for me. Like I went to school for music and couldn't read the books. And that was so fucking, like you did, like, even if like them being there under strict law fucking helped them to not get arrested when they were 18. A bunch of them got arrested. Some of them made it out okay, but still need therapy.
Yeah.
And
they
then
probably need therapy.
Yeah.
Like, and then you need and then you can't even get a college education because while you should have been learning, you were scrubbing floors, getting yelled at, and beat the fuck out of.
Yeah. And I think like what I want to say on the topic of like people saying it helped them or like they got better or whatever. I think like one, you have to account for people who were just going through being a teenager, right? Like they probably were going to be all right later in life, either way, whatever happened to them. They probably would have got their shit together because that's just how it works out sometimes. In other cases, maybe it did in some way help them, but just because it did does not make it good. Like I think about like the coronavirus and COVID and the lockdowns and all this fucking shit that we're going through. And I think it has done good for people in ways of, you know, taking a step back from things, thinking about things, having space, having time to reflect, having, you know, quiet to, you know, learn and open up their minds and really take into account their lives. But does that make the coronavirus good? Like, fuck no. Like the loneliness is killing people of quarantine. The virus is killing people. It's the hurting people financially. Yeah. So just because like something has good results doesn't mean it's a good thing in general, especially in cases like this where for the most part it harmed way more than it helped.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, you know, I think, you know, one of the women, you know, she passed away, I think, in 2017. And she got to the point where she was a shut-in her house. She couldn't go to the grocery store. She would have panic attacks in crowds. And I think she still had like a heroin addiction that was pretty heavy. And it's hard for me to believe that you were helped, you know, like so many more people were fucking brutalized, you know?
Right.
And had problems with it. Well after all of it happened to them, and it fucking lasted till 2011.
Right.
The one guy says, you know, what ends up happening is a dude who got out, found the internet, got on Reddit, and started posting like stories of Elan.
Right.
And it went viral. And one of the guys says, he says, Elan got shut down because they ran out of money.
Yeah.
Because people stopped sending their kids to it. So it's like, how much further would it have made? You know, like New York investigates once and finds all these problems.
Right. Maine
investigates, but they call beforehand and never find a problem and are just totally okay. Yes. And that's the thing. So they were getting, like, judges were getting paid.
Yep.
Like that comes out, like that judges were getting paid to send kids to this school. And it's like, man, the fucked up things that, because I was sitting there and I was like, the only reason, like, part of the reason that this whole documentary makes you like hurt is because you're like, damn, this is happening to fucking kids.
Yeah.
But it happens in prison and people fucking lobby for that shit. You know, like people are getting paid. Judges are getting paid to send people places.
Mm-hmm.
And that just really, it's like, how much are we willing to do for fucking money? Mm-hmm. Like that we make shit like this okay.
Yeah.
I think that was part of it too. And what happened with the school after like the 70s, it was like, you know, promoted for these like hardcore teen criminals. And then it's like, well, how can we get more money? Like, how do we get more? Oh, is your kid doing bad in school?
Yeah.
Send them here.
Yeah.
And that just, and I think, go ahead.
I told Sarah, I was like, I could have fucking been there.
Right.
Yeah.
Like the shit I was doing when I was like middle school, high school, shit like that. The relationship I had with my parents, the running away, the not living at home, the not going to school. Like when they were explaining this shit, I was like, damn, that's crazy. Like, and then like when you see the dates, it's like, I literally could have been in the Elan school until I was 18.
Yeah.
Like I could have been sent there, and that's fucking nuts to me.
One of the things I was thinking about, going back to the thought on like, could it actually help people? Some of them said that it did. Because I think that is tricky. But one of the things I thought is like, we only live our lives, right? So like, we're not watching a documentary on our lives. We're watching a documentary on somebody else's life. They actually lived that and they don't have another experience. So it's just really weird to break that down too, as like an outside perspective and think about when it does come to like a trauma bond. Like if you've got this place where you're completely torn down, but then in the next second, you're all holding hands, sharing your most vulnerable feelings. Like, yeah, it's a really intense thing. I mean, I would think so. Yeah.
Well,
it's definitely like messed up.
That was one of the things. Yeah. That was one of the things that they were saying about the one counselor is like, she's cool. She would talk to us. She would, you know what I mean? Right. And like, and that helped a lot. Like, I'm glad she was there, and like some of my memories are great. I made a ton of friends while I was at Elan and I still hang out with some of them, Yeah. And like, you think like I had a problem with that fucking woman from the, like I just did not like, I was like, it's that whole argument. So I think that brings me to my next like 2 points and maybe the things to end on here is like one, like when I think it was Peter Arnold, like one of the dudes, he was married to a woman who was also in Elan at the beginning. He like made it through, bust his way up, got in and said, I'm just going to listen to everything they say and do my work, and made it big. And at the end, he apologizes. And he's like, I'm sorry if I hurt you, which, I mean,
that was his sister that he was with, not his wife.
Was it his sister?
Yeah.
Okay. So he says like, I bust my way up and made it. And, I'm sorry if I hurt you. I was just following orders.
Yeah.
And that was fucking brutal. It's like, how many times like are people just following orders? What's that?
Oh, it's all the time, man.
Yeah.
That's the same argument that, you get into with like police officers where someone's like, oh, my uncle's a good cop or like whatever. And it's like, yeah, like maybe he wouldn't do police brutality on someone. Maybe he wouldn't, do all of the abuses of justice that we complain about, but he's still complicit in the system.
For sure.
He's not raising his hand and changing that system. It's still the way it is.
And that one counselor knew there were people like Peter that were just doing their jobs and beating the fuck out of kids.
Right.
And dressing them in embarrassing costumes and yelling. They would find things out about your life and, say that like bring that shit up.
Yeah.
Like, and re-abuse you and reopen those wounds. And I thought it was, it's fucked.
Oh, on that note, they listened to every single call and read every letter written out of there. They didn't let stuff pass. It was like, they pulled a military and they would like, they would black out shit and stuff like that too. Yeah.
Like they would censor letters going out and coming in and shit like that. It's crazy. It's fucked up. That's all I got. It was a huge bummer.
Yeah.
This shit happens.
Tough.
Yeah. It was, there are no redeeming qualities here.
No.
Other than we know not to treat people this way, and we need to do something about for-profit industries that profit off our children or off of people who are deemed prisoners or whatever the fuck else. We need to do something about that.
Yeah.
And we know that this kind of attack therapy or like abuse therapy or whatever it is where we think that we can just beat someone into being a good person, it doesn't work. So maybe it's just go to therapy again, or like
Yeah.
help your kid go to therapy.
Yeah, I think that a big one is maybe don't just follow orders.
Sure.
Like I don't like that. Like the fact that you can make the fact that you can make the prisoners the guards.
Yeah.
Like it's just never good.
Unfortunately, in that scenario, though, I think if they had the amount of power that if you didn't follow orders, you would just be in the corner forever, or be sent to real prison.
Yeah.
So maybe, free people don't just follow orders.
Yeah.
And let's not let people be put in a position where they're not allowed to have any freedoms.
Yeah, for sure.
I want to say something.
Yeah, I want to hear what you have to say.
I just want to, my last reflective words again go back to the mental health stuff, but I think the importance of not avoiding your mental health is a really big one. One of the things that struck me again was, these kids being sent there. A lot of times, I think what happened was their parents not only didn't want to deal with them because of their behavior, but they didn't want to deal with them because they didn't want to deal with the problems that were happening in their family, like the abuse, like the sexual abuse, the mental and physical abuse. So most likely those things were happening to them or before that. So just the idea of a lot of this stuff really is passed down through generations. And so if you want to be different, if you want to, have a fresh start or get better, you can't just avoid it. It's not gonna happen that way.
Yeah.
You can't ship your kid away and think that that's gonna fix it.
For sure. I agree. I mean, as a parent watching it, it's I don't know. It hits you in the gut, and it made me think about every time that I might have handled the way my son is wrong.
Yeah.
And at that point, Sarah and I were watching it, and it's let's just be better parents, and love our kids, and not just, I don't know, ship it in,
Right.
Like Teake said, it's I think that you can physically ship your kids off, and you can also mentally, give up and shit. And it's a loving parent. When I looked at that, it's how could you think this was a good idea for your kids,
And I could think too that there are probably kids there that have good relationships or had good relationships with their parents after this. And I think that's the thing is you can make amends. You can, I'm the way I am, right? And my kids know that, but I'm reactive and I'm out there, and I apologize for the things that I do that I don't mean to do or don't want to do. And that's a thing that they know about me, and they're going to know that forever. And when Elodie is somebody who screams and is angry, she knows that I can be that way too. And it makes her feel good that she knows that she has me who also quote unquote freaks out.
Yeah.
So there's these things, I don't know, that can be genuine and vulnerable, even though they're messy and hard, that really do promote good relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that I couldn't have said that better myself. Yeah, I love that. I love the fact that apologize to your kids. We're trying to figure it out together. And I so many people could have been saved if I think that it both ways, parents being in the picture and parents being people who admit their wrongs, and don't just, let it go by the wind,
Yeah.
So, hell yeah. That was
there's
great.
a verse there somewhere for sure.
Yeah, there's a verse. I think just write down, if you're writing along with the tome, just write down whatever Teake said, because it's great.
Yeah.
That whole thing. So yeah. Hey, Teake, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
I think Teake's Cult Corner needs to be a thing.
I'm open to it.
Yeah.
Yes.
And even though, that was the thing. It's like, this is a weird one, but it definitely seems very culty.
Yeah. I mean, you can definitely be like, why are people doing this? But also like, oh, I don't know. There's some things that people liked about it. That's weird.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Well, we love you all.
Yeah.
And you can follow us up on places.
Tome of Chaos Podcast on all social media, and Tome of Chaos Podcast at gmail.com if you have questions, concerns, theories. If you want to just tell us that you like us, I'll read that email and say, hey, thanks.
Yeah.
All that's great.
Put 5 stars.
iTunes.
Yeah, 5 stars on everything. And also, we have a Twitch now.
Yeah.
Watch Walter and I do things. It's not heavy. We just do content when we can, but maybe Walter will make music on there and I'll play video games and talk about how fucked up Mitch McConnell is.
Could be fun.
It could be fun. Hey,
you might like it.
Yeah. Well, we love you all. I love you. And I love Walter and Teake. And I hope chaos walks with you all this week.
Love you too, bud. Peace.